The chandeliers of the azure ballroom dripped diamonds of light, yet a shadow had fallen, a chill snaking through the perfumed air. Whispers, sharp as shattered crystal, darted between the bejeweled guests. The Thornes? Divorcing? Impossible. Julian and Seraphina Thorne were the city's gilded darlings, their union a society fairy tale. But tonight, the fairy tale was bleeding. Seraphina Valerius Thorne, 5 months into a pregnancy that was meant to be their ultimate joy, clutched a damask-covered invitation to the annual Starlight Gala. Her fingers trembled. The invitation felt like a relic from another life, one that imploded hours ago with 4 precise words from her husband. Could this glittering charade already know her devastating secret? It began with the silent glide of Julian's Lucidian specter into their Celestial Heights estate. Back from Neo-Tokyo, another groundbreaking neurorobotics deal sealed. Powerful. Driven. And tonight, a stranger. Seraphina waited in the vast atrium, ivory gown caressing her baby bump. This child, their child, a miracle after 6 years of whispered hopes. She'd imagined his arms around her, his hand with hers on their precious life. But the man who entered wasn't her Julian. Or was he the Julian she'd refused to see? His eyes, usually warm gray, were flat, polished steel. He moved past her, cold air clinging to him. No embrace. He tossed his jacket onto a Louis XVI chair. A brutal dismissal. "We need to talk, Seraphina," he said finally, voice devoid of inflection. His gaze snagged her stomach. A flicker, guilt, then an impenetrable mask. He looked anywhere but at her. "There are arrangements to be made." Her heart hammered. Arrangements? Cold, clinical. A dark premonition. She'd felt this tension for months, an insidious thing she'd blamed on his empire, their world. Love was stronger, wasn't it? "What arrangements, Julian?" Her voice a thin thread. He turned, face a study in detached resolve. "I want a divorce, Seraphina." Icicles piercing her soul, the chandeliers dimmed, air thickened, stealing her breath. Divorce? A millionaire divorce, tabloid fodder. Her, his pregnant wife, at their happiest chapter's precipice. But why? A whisper of disbelief. Tears welled, blurring the man, dismantling her world. Betrayal? This was vivisection. Julian exhaled, no warmth. "Because, Seraphina," each syllable a dart, "this marriage it's no longer viable for me. No longer viable. A soured business deal. A failed investment. Was that all they were?" Her knees buckled. Her curated life, her tender hopes, crumbling to ash. Not just a shocking demand, an execution. In the deafening silence, her hand found her abdomen. A flutter, a kick. Her innocent child, and a new resolve hardened. Whatever Julian Thorne intended, she would not be broken. She wouldn't let their child suffer his inexplicable betrayal. The gilded cage might be in ruins, but she would rise. She had to. The ghost of their perfect life mocked her, but as dawn painted the guest suite windows, her refuge, her prison, Seraphina Valerius Thorne knew this wasn't an ending. It was the terrifying, uncertain start of a battle she never chose, but one she was now determined to fight. What else could she do? And how on earth would she begin? The first cracks of dawn and a lifeline. The ghost of their perfect life mocked her, but as dawn painted the guest suite windows, Seraphina knew this wasn't an ending. It was a terrifying beginning. But how did one fight a titan like Julian Thorne? The Ethelgard's son found Seraphina curled on the bed, a statue of ice and despair. Celestial Heights, once their dream, now a tomb. Each breath a shard of glass. 6 years poured into this life, into him, a woman from quiet Silverwood Glen in a world of glittering predators. And for what? This cold severance? A soft knock. Alara Vance, their housekeeper, face a roadmap of kind wrinkles, entered with tea. "Signora Seraphina," Alara's voice a balm. "Chamomile. It might soothe." Soothe this? Yet, Alara's compassion was an ember in Seraphina's frozen heart. She followed Alara through silent, museum-like corridors past Julian's locked study. The kitchen, usually bustling, was hushed. Did they all know? Of course. Secrets have wings in these houses. Sipping tea, Alara murmured, "He left very early, Signora. Before sunup, he looked quite troubled." A pause. Perhaps, barely a whisper, "He will reconsider." A treacherous hope. Troubled? Reconsider? It died instantly. Julian Thorne didn't reconsider. He decided. This wasn't haste. It was calculated. Yet, that flicker in his eyes at her belly? A mistake? A nightmare? The shrill ring of the house phone. Seraphina jumped. "Julian? Lawyers? A journalist sniffing out their dead marriage?" Alara answered, then held out the receiver. "For you, Signora, a Miss Clara Beaumont." "Clara?" her dearest conservatory friend, a fiery artist married to Marcus Beaumont, Julian's associate. The world felt tiny, rumors spreading like contagion. Taking the phone, Seraphina saw her reflection, a ghostly stranger. "Seraphina, darling, tell me it's not true," Clara's voice tight with concern. "Clara," Seraphina whispered, "Julian wants a divorce." The words, another blow. A sharp intake of breath, then outraged sympathy. "That bastard, Seraphina! I am so sorry. Marcus and I are on your side. Anything, just say it." Tears broke free, relief in a friendly voice. "Oh, Clara, I need a friend. Can you come?" "Already halfway there, darling. Lock the doors. Don't speak to anyone. And Seraphina, stay strong. Hear me? Strong." The click echoed. Denial shattered. This was real. She was on the precipice. But Clara's words resonated. Stay strong. Maternal ferocity surged. Yes, for her child. If Julian wanted this, she'd face him. Not as a victim, as a mother. On her terms. What choice did she have? Clara Beaumont arrived like a vibrant whirlwind, all Chanel and righteous fury, arms laden with battle provisions, chocolates, tea, the art of war for women. Seraphina felt her first stirrings of comfort. "Marcus is apoplectic," Clara declared. "This is beyond the pale. How are you, my love? Truly?" Seraphina sank onto the sofa. Hollowed out, Clara, amputated without anesthetic. Her voice raw. So happy about the baby after all the years, and now unraveling. Clara took her hands. "You are stronger than you think. Remember the Nightingale Trust Gala? That odious Baroness von Hesse tried to smear you? The press, a pack of wolves. You faced them, came out with integrity. That fire is still in you." A watery smile. The Nightingale Trust, a children's hospice, falsely accused, nearly broken, but her dignity won. She needed that steel now. "Was it enough against Julian? Have you spoken to a lawyer?" Clara asked, eyes sharp. Seraphina recoiled. A lawyer, alien. A war she never wanted. "No, not yet. It feels surreal. Part of me hopes he'll say it was a mistake." Clara squeezed her hands. "Men, especially powerful ones, can be monumental fools. Given Julian's resources, you must protect yourself. And," her gaze dropped to Seraphina's belly, "you have to think about the baby." The baby. Maternal protectiveness surged. Her child. This innocent life. She would do whatever it took. A hazy memory, the prenuptial agreement. Just a formality, darling. But a clause about children. Significantly alter the landscape. A shield or another weapon? "Clara," her voice firmer. "That prenuptial? Something about children." Clara nodded. "Exactly. Julian's lawyers will twist it. You need someone who can fight fire with dragon's breath." Her eyes lit. "Beatrix Sterling. Heard of her?" Seraphina shook her head. "A legend. Discreet as a confessor. Tough as diamond-tipped nails. Sterling and Associates. They say Lord Ashworth and Lady Beatrice Cromwell came out second best against her. You don't just need a lawyer, Seraphina. You need a warrior. You need Beatrix Sterling." Seraphina took a shuddering breath. Moving too fast. Betrayal, legal jargon, impending motherhood. But ignoring this? Unthinkable. Her survival. Her babies. Could she face Julian in court? Nauseating. "Yes," she said at last, a mere breath but steely. "Yes, Clara, please. Her details." Clara beamed, scribbling a number on monogrammed stationery. "Call her, now. Set up a meeting. Marcus and I were with you. Every step." As Clara left, promising to return, Seraphina eyed the jilted clock. Each tick a step from her known life. But clutching Beatrix Sterling's name, a spark of defiance. Hope? If Julian thought she'd crumble, he was about to discover Seraphina Valerius, mother of his child. Just finding her voice. The fight for her future was terrifying, but the alternative, quiet desperation, was unthinkable. She picked up her phone, hand steady now, dialed Sterling and Associates. Each ring, a drumbeat against the bars of Julian's opulent cage, bars she was now determined to break. But would this warrior lawyer be enough? And what would Julian do when he realized she wasn't going to play the victim? The lion's den, Julian's game, and Seraphina's counsel. The phone call to Sterling and Associates was a declaration, a first shot fired in a war Seraphina never wanted. While she braced herself, Julian Thorne, miles away in his quantum corridor sanctum, fought his own battles, ones waged in the sterile silence of his mind. Thorne Imperium's peak office should have been a place of triumph. Instead, it felt like a gilded cage of his own making. Compartmentalization, his superpower, was failing him. The image of Seraphina, pregnant, her eyes wide with the pain he'd inflicted, kept short-circuiting his meticulously ordered thoughts. Why? Why this self-sabotage? The photo on his desk, Seraphina at the Starlight Gala, radiant, her hand in his, was a constant, mocking indictment. He tried to focus on the reasons. Freedom. Escape from a life that felt suffocatingly preordained, a legacy he both revered and resented. The baby, their baby. A joy that had twisted into a terrifying symbol of entrapment. His father's failures, the thorn shadows as Seraphina had unknowingly echoed in her delirium, loomed large, whispering of his own inadequacy. Could he be a good father? A devoted husband? Or was he doomed to repeat a cycle of emotional desolation? It was easier, wasn't it, to cut and run before he failed? Before he broke them all? And he sold Rochefort. He sold. A vision in bespoke Geneva tailoring, her mind as sharp as her stiletto heels. She was a thrilling distraction, a kindred spirit in ambition, whispering of conquests and untamed horizons. Their late-night strategy sessions for the transatlantic merger had blurred lines, an intellectual dance spiraling into something more. Charged. He hadn't crossed the ultimate line, or so he told himself. But had he? Emotional betrayal could be just as devastating, couldn't it? He'd felt vulnerable with Seraphina, a feeling he abhorred. Isolde made him feel powerful, in control. Or was that just another illusion? His legal counsel, Eleanor Ainsworth and Dominic Finch, arrived, their presence as comforting and chilling as a winter storm. Julian, Ainsworth began, her voice cutting through his reverie. The domestic realignment. He nodded, the word realignment, a cold corporate euphemism for the carnage he was unleashing. I've informed Seraphina. Swift, discreet. Then the admission that still tasted like acid. She's 5 months pregnant. Finch, ever the pragmatist, adjusted his spectacles. The prenuptial Julian, the child-related provisos, they significantly alter the financial calculus. Aggressive representation on her part could make this complicated. Julian's jaw clenched. The prenup, a dusty relic, now a potential minefield. Fairness, Dominic, but my assets, Thorne Imperium, my obligations, they must be protected, at all costs. His voice was harsher than intended. As they dissected his life, a part of him saw Seraphina, alone, pregnant, an ache, sharp and visceral. His phone buzzed. Isolde. Dinner, darling? Urgent thoughts, and perhaps other acquisitions? The siren song. He pushed Seraphina's image away. He had a plan, didn't he? Across Olympus City, Seraphina walked into Sterling and Associates. The lobby hummed with quiet power, polished chrome, cool marble. This was where titans clashed. Intimidating? Yes. But she clutched her grandmother's antique locket, a talisman against the looming dread. Beatrix Sterling entered, tall, impeccably dressed, a surprising warmth in her assessing eyes. Seraphina, Beatrix's voice was calm. Clara Beaumont has provided an outline. Tell me everything. And Seraphina did. The shock, the pregnancy, the confusing prenuptial, Julian's coldness, the love that still, inexplicably, lingered. When she finished, hoarse and trembling, Beatrix's expression was resolute. All right, Seraphina, the prenuptial agreement. A faint smile. A pregnancy significantly changes the dynamics. The law has a vested interest in children, Julian Thorne's included. I don't want to ruin him, Beatrix, Seraphina whispered. He's Lyra's father. Beatrix's smile was knowing. Your character is noted, Seraphina. However, Julian's team will be ruthless. They will try to discredit you, minimize your claims. My role is to ensure you are not blindsided. This isn't revenge, it's justice and provision. Her gaze was unwavering. A high-net-worth divorce is a battlefield. Tabloids will circle, maintain an extremely low profile. No interviews, no statements, everything through legal channels. Understood? Seraphina nodded, the thought of public humiliation sickening. And Julian, Beatrix continued, any chance of reconciliation? Mediation? Seraphina's voice shook. He offered no real explanation, just, it wasn't working for him. He's walled himself off. Then we prepare for war. Beatrix was decisive. Temporary support orders, custody, visitation. If he or his lawyers contact you, refer them to me. Is that clear? Yes, thank you. Seraphina felt overwhelmed, yet relieved. She had an ally. Beatrix's voice softened. Divorce is never easy, especially this, but you are not alone. Focus on your health, your baby, a lifeline. Tears welled, but of fragile strength. All right, Beatrix, I'll do whatever it takes. Leaving Sterling and Associates, the city skyline a glittering, indifferent backdrop, Seraphina clutched her coat. A new vow formed. She would face Julian Thorne, not as the naive woman she'd been, but as the mother she was becoming. If he thought he could cast her and their child aside, he was about to discover a resilience he had catastrophically underestimated. The battle lines were drawn. But were there other unseen players in this high-stakes game, players with agendas of their own? And what exactly were those Thorne family legacy assets Beatrix had alluded to on the phone just yesterday? The ones tied so intricately to Lyra's birth, the ones Isolde Rochefort had shown such a keen, unsettling interest in. The questions swirled, adding another layer of chilling complexity to Julian's motives. The fight was just beginning. Confrontations and a ticking clock. Stepping out of Beatrix Sterling's office, the weight of impending battle on her shoulders, Seraphina also felt a spark of defiant agency. Julian Thorne might be a titan, but she was no longer a sacrificial lamb. Little did she know, the ripples of his decision were already stirring storms in unexpected places. Marcus Beaumont, Julian's supposed friend and Clara's husband, was a man who valued loyalty and fairness above the glittering prizes of their shared world. And Julian's treatment of a pregnant Seraphina? It was an affront Marcus couldn't ignore. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Marcus?" Clara asked that evening, watching him pace their Viridian Hills living room, his face a mask of controlled fury. The news had hit him hard. Julian isn't exactly receptive to criticism, especially now. Marcus finally stopped, his jaw set. "He was my friend, Clara. We built things together. I can't just stand by and watch him detonate his life and Seraphina's without at least trying to talk some sense into him. What kind of man does that make me?" What indeed? When does silence become complicity? The drive to Celestial Heights was thick with a tension that mirrored the stormy Ethelgard sky. Memories of laughter-filled dinners and ambitious dreams forged in Julian's opulent den now felt like relics from a forgotten, more honorable age. When had Julian become this hollow man? He found Julian in his cavernous study, a portrait of the first Thorne patriarch looming over him like a judgmental ghost. The air was frigid despite the roaring fire. "Marcus," Julian acknowledged, his voice devoid of warmth, a hint of irritation in his eyes. "An unexpected visit." "Julian, we need to talk about Seraphina." A flicker of something, annoyance, guilt, crossed Julian's face. "My personal life is precisely that, Marcus. Personal." "Personal?" Marcus's voice rose, disbelief lacing his tone. "Your 5 months pregnant wife out on her ear, Julian. After years of her devotion, after everything you two supposedly built. How is that just personal? Have you even considered the emotional toll, the sheer cruelty of it?" Julian turned to the window, his reflection a pale, haunted silhouette against the darkening sky. "You don't understand the complexities, Marcus. The pressures." "Complexities? Pressures?" Marcus was incredulous. "Or is it Isolde Rochefort? Is she the complexity that justifies destroying your family?" Julian spun around, his eyes blazing with a cold fury. "You will not speak her name in this house, and you will not presume to lecture me on my choices. This conversation is over." "Choices?" Marcus stood his ground, his own anger now a palpable force. "This isn't a choice, Julian. It's a betrayal. A monumental one. Seraphina isn't some corporate asset to be liquidated. She's carrying your child." He paused, his voice dropping. "What happened to you, man? Where's the honor, the decency we used to talk about?" "People change," Julian said, his voice flat. "This isn't change, Julian. This is a void." Marcus walked to the door, then turned back. "She's not alone, by the way. She's retained Beatrix Sterling." The name hung in the air. Julian's face, for a fleeting instant, was a canvas of shock. Then something harder, colder, settled in. "So, the battle lines are drawn," he said, a dangerous glint in his eye. "If Seraphina wants a war she will get." Marcus left, the weight of a dead friendship heavy on his shoulders, the imposing mansion a monument to a man lost in his own gilded labyrinth. Would Julian ever see past his pride, his fear, his whatever it was that drove him? The weeks that followed were a blur of torment for Seraphina. Legal consultations with Beatrix, each one a stark reminder of the chasm between her past life and her terrifying present. Medical checkups with Dr. Evelyn Ramsey, who voiced growing concern over Seraphina's soaring stress levels and their potential impact on the baby. "Seraphina," Dr. Ramsey had said gently, her eyes kind but firm, "this level of sustained anxiety, it's not good for either of you. We need to find ways to mitigate it." How, when her entire world was a battlefield? And the media? God, the media. Paparazzi lurked like jackals outside the gates of Celestial Heights. Drones buzzed overhead, their intrusive lenses violating her last vestiges of privacy. One morning, a brash young tabloid reporter, all fake tan and sharper ambition, managed to ambush Seraphina in her own driveway as she returned from a solitary walk. "Mrs. Thorne, is it true you're demanding half the Thorne imperium? Are you using this pregnancy as leverage against your husband?" The questions, fired like poisoned darts, were designed to wound, to provoke. Lyra gave a sharp, indignant kick, as if in protest. Seraphina, her face pale but her spine rigid, turned away, refusing to engage, refusing to give them the soundbite they craved. The resulting headlines were, of course, brutal. The betrayed Baroness fights back. Thorne divorce, baby a bargaining chip, each word a fresh stab. Who was feeding them these narratives? Julian? I sold? Or just the insatiable beast of public consumption? Through it all, Seraphina clung to her mantra. I am not powerless. I will fight for what is right, for Lyra. She reconnected with old college friends, sought solace in her philanthropic work, rediscovering a version of herself untethered from the glittering, suffocating label of Mrs. Julian Thorne. Julian, meanwhile, was a ghost in their shared home, a phantom of hushed hallway crossings and curt, impersonal acknowledgments. He poured himself into Thorne Imperium, into late-night dinners with Isolde Rochefort, the whispers of their deepening professional collaboration reaching even Seraphina's carefully guarded ears. Yet, sometimes she would catch him staring at her swollen belly, a flicker of something in his eyes. Regret? Fear? Or just the cold calculation of a man weighing his assets? The ambiguity was another form of torture. Then came the preliminary court hearing. The sterile, imposing Olympus City courthouse corridors buzzed with a predatory energy. Seraphina arrived, flanked by Beatrix and a stoic Clara, her simple elegance a stark contrast to the legal armor she wore within. When Julian entered with his phalanx of lawyers, Eleanor Ainsworth and Dominic Finch, their faces grimly professional, the air crackled. His gaze, inevitably, found hers, then dropped to her belly. That flicker again. What did it mean? Beatrix Sterling was magnificent. Calm, precise, her arguments for immediate spousal and prenatal support irrefutable. She painted a vivid picture of Seraphina's emotional and financial strain, referencing Julian's vast assets, the prenuptial's child-related clauses. "Mr. Thorne continues to thrive," Beatrix stated, her voice resonating through the hushed courtroom, "while my client bears the sole and considerable burden of this pregnancy, a pregnancy he co-authored." Ainsworth countered, her voice sharp, dismissive. Julian had set aside adequate funds. The request exceeded what was reasonable. Seraphina's hands clenched. Adequate? Reasonable? Compared to what? His racehorse stables? His private island? The judge, a woman with tired, wise eyes, finally called for calm. "I have reviewed the filings. Given the advanced stage of Mrs. Thorne's pregnancy and the clear emotional and financial burdens, I am inclined to grant temporary spousal and prenatal support until this matter is fully resolved. Mr. Thorne," her gaze was direct, "this is in the best interest of your unborn child. I strongly urge both parties to attempt mediation." A small victory, a fragile shield. As they left, Julian brushed past Seraphina, his eyes fixed straight ahead, as if she were invisible. The sting was unexpectedly sharp. The final weeks of her pregnancy were a ticking clock, each day an eternity. Amelia was a rock, helping Seraphina set up the nursery, a room filled with soft peach hues and whispered hopes. One afternoon, as they folded tiny, impossibly soft blankets, Amelia hesitated. "Seraphina, Marcus heard? While the rumors about Julian and Isolde, they're getting louder." Seraphina's heart clenched. "I know, Clara, it doesn't change anything now, does it? He's already gone." But it did hurt. Oh, how it hurt. Later, alone in the quiet sanctuary of the nursery, Lyra gave a gentle nudge from within. "We'll be okay," Seraphina whispered, resting a hand on her belly. "I promise." Just then her phone buzzed. Julian's name flashed on the screen. Her heart leaped. "Seraphina?" His voice quieter than she remembered. "I need to talk to you. Can we meet?" Talk? About what? About them? About Lyra? Was this another legal maneuver? Or something else? The terrifying, irresistible pull of hope, she realized, was the hardest thing of all to extinguish. What new torment or unexpected twist did this summons portend? The unraveling and a new dawn following Julian's surprising call, Seraphina agreed to meet him, torn between a skepticism bone deep and a desperate, flickering ember of hope. Their conversation at the Cypress Creek Cafe, 2 weeks before Lyra's dramatic arrival, unsettling. Julian, looking undeniably fatigued, confessed a desire to be part of their daughter's life. A regret that felt both too little and far too late. "I don't want to be absent from her life," he'd said, his voice raw with an emotion she hadn't witnessed in years. But when she'd pressed, asking the inevitable, "Why now, Julian, after all this?" his apologies were insufficient, his explanations vague, tinged with that same haunting fear he couldn't quite articulate. He'd even hinted at mediation. Her guarded response, "Then you'd better prove it," had left them in a fragile, uncertain limbo. His actions, she knew, would have to scream where his words had only whispered. Could a man really change that much? Or was this just another calculated move in his high-stakes game? 2 weeks later, the universe answered with a terrifying immediacy. 2:42 a.m., a sharp, searing cramp ripped Seraphina from a restless sleep. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. Too soon. 3 weeks too soon. Another wave of pain, and she knew. This was no false alarm. Her hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone. Clara? Beatrix? No. Instinct, raw and primal, overrode everything. Julian, he needed to be here. Now. Seraphina? His voice thick with sleep, then instantly alert as she gasped out, "Julian, labor, hospital, now. I'm coming." The roar of his Lucidian specter tearing up the Celestial Heights driveway was absurdly a sound of relief. He burst in, pajamas under a cashmere coat, his face a mask of terror and fierce urgency. The drive to Olympus City General was a blur of streaking lights and ragged breaths, her hand gripping his forehead pressed to hers. "Breathe, Seraphina. Just breathe." Events accelerated. Dr. Evelyn Ramsey. The organized chaos of the delivery room. IV lines, monitors beeping. And Julian, a constant, surprisingly steady presence by her side, wiping her brow, murmuring encouragement, his jaw tight when she screamed. Hours blurred into an eternity of pain. In one moment of agonizing clarity, she locked eyes with him, saw his genuine fear, his concern, and then, in a wave of delirium, the words tore from her, a fragmented whisper. Not like this, not the Thorne curse, not his father's shadows, no. She saw him flinch, a darkness crossing his face. What did those shadows hide? What was this curse that seemed to bind his soul? Would she ever know? Then, as dawn painted the sky, one final monumental push, and the world exploded with a sound. A tiny, piercing, indignant wail. "Lyra." "It's a girl," Dr. Ramsey announced, placing their daughter, so small, so perfect, onto Seraphina's chest. Overwhelming love, incandescent joy. She glanced at Julian. Tears streamed down his face. The composed magnate, humbled, undone by the miracle before him. For that one, timeless instant, the chasm between them vanished. They named her Lyra Seraphina Thorne, a name whispered in happier, forgotten dreams. As Lyra's cries softened, Julian reached out a trembling finger, gently stroking her cheek. Seraphina watched, exhaustion and hope warring within her. Could this be real? This fragile unity? Or just a fleeting reprieve before the storm? The question hung heavy in the air, as potent and uncertain as the new life cradled in her arms. What would the morning truly bring for them, for their little Lyra? Whispers of redemption, echoes of pain. The unraveling had been brutal, but in the heart of that devastation, a new dawn, fragile and uncertain. It was perhaps truly breaking. Or was it? Seraphina clung to that prayer as the first days of Lyra's life unfolded in the hushed Olympus City General maternity suite. Her world contracted to Lyra's tiny breaths, feedings, diaper changes, and an overwhelming love that ached. Exhaustion was constant, yet beneath it, a profound purpose knitted her soul. Lyra, her daughter, her anchor, and Julian. Julian surprised everyone. He took time off from Thorne Imperium, an unprecedented act. He hovered, large and awkward, in the pastel world of new motherhood. Clumsy, yes, but his attempts at fatherhood were earnest. He held Lyra as if she were spun glass, paced the suite at night, Lyra against his chest, his deep baritone attempting off-key lullabies with raw tenderness. Was this a performance? Seraphina watched, her hope cautious. Could their daughter's birth truly have cracked him open? Or was this the Julian he didn't know existed? The day they left, Julian arrived with Lyra's car seat meticulously installed. He helped Seraphina with a gentleness that made her ache. He didn't just drop them at Celestial Heights. He carried Lyra into the nursery Alara had prepared, asking quietly, "What can I do to help, Seraphina?" He stayed. In a guest room. Sleeping little. Fumbling with bottles, his expensive suits replaced by rumpled linens. Days bled into weeks. He learned to swaddle, to differentiate Lyra's cries. He even, Seraphina overheard with a flicker of amusement, emerged shell-shocked but triumphant from one explosive diaper change. What was happening to the ruthless Julian Thorne she thought she knew? Yet, the ghost of their divorce lingered. Awkward silences whenever Lyra slept. Beatrix Sterling's voice, a calm reminder during a vid call. Temporary goodwill, Seraphina, is not sustainable reconciliation. Be cautious. Do not lower your guard. Seraphina understood. Her heart was wary. But she saw Julian's raw adoration for Lyra, a paternal instinct contradicting his earlier coldness. Was it real? Or was she again fooling herself? Then, Beatrix's call about the prenuptial. Seraphina, her voice held an odd note, the Thorne family legacy assets. Lyra's birth as a direct heir seems to have unlocked access to significant assets. Assets that might have remained dormant or vulnerable to external claims, were Julian deemed without direct issue. A chill. Do you recall, Beatrix continued, a Miss Isolde Rochefort ever mentioned regarding family trusts? Isolde Rochefort, the ambitious Geneva VC. Had her interest in Julian been purely professional, or had she been fishing for an opening into the Thorne dynasty's labyrinthine finances? Was Julian's devotion to Lyra a cynical game? Or was Beatrix just being a lawyer, seeing conspiracies? The uncertainty was a fresh torment. Could his change of heart be so calculated? Days later, she found Julian in the nursery, gazing at Lyra's crib, his expression haunted, tender. She's perfect, isn't she? He whispered. I never thought I could feel anything like this. Seraphina stood beside him. Beatrix's words echoed. It's called love, Julian, she said quietly. What you walked away from. His face tightened, then crumbled. I never stopped loving you, Seraphina. I was afraid, terrified, of failing you, her. He gestured to Lyra. Afraid of becoming like him, repeating the same damn Thorne shadows. Her words from labor, he'd heard. Understood? I am so sorry, he choked out. For everything. Can you ever forgive me? Then the question she'd both dreaded and traitorously longed for. Is there any chance, Seraphina, for us to be a family? For Lyra? The wounds were deep. Beatrix's warning, a cold weight. But Lyra changed everything. I don't know, Julian, she admitted, voice trembling. The pain, it's part of me now. She looked at Lyra, then him. But maybe we can start with her. Be decent, kind, the parents she deserves. She stepped closer. We can see where that leads. But Julian, her voice hardened. No more games. No more lies. No more shadows. He nodded, tears brimming. No more shadows, he whispered, a raw, desperate sincerity in his voice. Thank you. A fragile unity. The path ahead shrouded, but for the first time, a tiny whisper of hope, delicate as Lyra's breath, dared to echo in the silence. Could it grow into redemption? Or would the lingering questions about those legacy assets, about Isolde's true intentions, prove that some shadows are impossible to escape? The future felt like a tightrope walk over a terrifying abyss. The unwritten chapter. In that moment, standing side by side, gazing at their sleeping daughter, a fragile, tentative unity had settled between them. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, littered with the wreckage of their past. But for the first time in what felt like an eternity, a tiny, fragile whisper of hope, as delicate and precious as Lyra's soft breaths, had dared to echo in the silence, a counterpoint to the lingering pain. Would that whisper grow, or would the shadows of the past ultimately consume it? Months spun into the tapestry of new parenthood. The late autumn sun now streamed into the Willow Branch Cafe in Cypress Creek, illuminating Seraphina Valerius Thorne. No longer a portrait of despair, but of quiet, resilient strength. In her arms, Lyra, a thriving 6-month-old, gurgled, her bright eyes absorbing the world. A hard-won peace enveloped Seraphina, not blissful ignorance, but the serenity of a woman who had walked through hellfire and found her footing on the other side. Still, the work of healing, that was ongoing, wasn't it? Always. The bell chimed. Julian entered, a few minutes late, a sheepish apology on his lips. Thorne Expressway was a beast, he offered, a faint smile. The haunted shadows in his eyes had receded, though not vanished. He leaned down, kissing Lyra's downy head. And how's my little star today? First tooth just broke through, Seraphina announced, a playful challenge in her eyes. And she almost rolled over. You owe me 20. Julian feigned outrage. The tooth, I concede, but the roll? Clearly assisted by Alara's good wishes. He slid into the chair, his movements easy. The oppressive tension, gone, replaced by a careful, respectful warmth and understanding. Is this what a second chance looks like, feels like? Their interactions were still cautious, like dancers relearning a complex ballet, mindful of tender bruises. The divorce proceedings, indefinitely slowed. Beatrix Sterling, ever the pragmatist, had raised an eyebrow but acceded. Counseling with Dr. Anya Sharma was their non-negotiable weekly ritual, a painstaking navigation of their shared history, their individual traumas. Some days the past felt unbearable, but Lyra was their North Star, their reason to keep choosing the difficult path of healing. Their relationship wasn't repaired. Not fully. The cracks remained, a testament to the earthquake. But genuine effort? Shared devotion to their daughter? Yes. And slowly, something new was being built. More honest, more real. Could it last? That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? Seraphina marveled at their journey. The sharpest heartbreak leading to unforeseen growth. She'd found an inner strength, refusing victimhood. And Julian, once blinded by ambition, crippled by the thorn shadows he now dissected with raw honesty in therapy, was finding purpose in fatherhood. Learning true strength wasn't control, but vulnerability. The thorn curse, that legacy of emotional unavailability, was loosening its grip, one clumsy lullaby, one heartfelt apology at a time. Or was he just a better actor now? The doubt, a faint, chilling whisper. This wasn't a fairy tale. Life was too messy. Theirs was a story of realistic hope, of rebuilding trust day by grueling day. The final card Seraphina played wasn't revenge, it was resilience. Choosing hope for Lyra. Of course, the outside world still whispered. Beatrix's investigation into the Thorne family legacy assets, those convoluted clauses Isolde Rochefort had shown such a timely interest in, remained an unresolved thread. That peculiar codicil, a guardian's discretionary fund, linked to Lyra's lineage. Coincidence? Or another game in the shadows? A game that could still threaten their fragile peace? Seraphina didn't know. Not yet. Perhaps some complexities, some external intrigues would always linger, a reminder of Julian's world. A world she was now navigating with newfound cautious wisdom. You always have to watch your back in this life, don't you? Especially when so much is at stake. But looking at Julian, his eyes soft with genuine affection for Lyra, feeling Lyra's tiny hand curl around her finger, Seraphina knew one thing. Their story, their unwritten chapter, was still unfolding. And for the first time in a long, long time, a quiet, steady warmth, a hopeful anticipation for the words yet to be inscribed, filled her. The path was uncertain, but they were walking it, together. And for now, that was more than enough. It was, in its own imperfect, resilient way, everything. Or was it just the calm before another storm? Only the next page would tell. And you wouldn't want to miss that, would you? Dear friend, sometimes life doesn't give us the closure we crave, only a question mark and a choice. Seraphina didn't get justice in the form of revenge. Instead, she found something even more powerful: resilience. Like the Stoics taught, we don't control what storms arrive, but we do control whether we stand or break beneath them. She chose to stand, not for pride, but for love, for her daughter, for herself. The path to healing was jagged and uncertain, but day by day she walked it with quiet courage. And isn't that what strength really is? Not perfection, but persistence. If you're standing at the edge of your own storm, take heart. The unwritten chapter is yours to shape. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. If this story moved you, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who needs it, and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us bring more stories of strength and hope to life.